Welcome to this week's episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. So, I was editing this in the studio and I realized I wasn't on it because Francis did the recording on his own. No big deal, good time in interviewing a guest. But then halfway through, they just started telling stories and I was like, damn it, I hate it when I miss out on moronic military stories. And since this episode wound up finishing at about 50 minutes, I thought, hey, you know what? I could just throw in one of my own stories here at the beginning and you as a captive audience have to listen to it. So guess what? Here's the story. So I decided I wanted to get out of the Army. And I left the Special Forces course because I was like, yeah, fuck carrying a rucksack. I'm going to get out of the Army. But I had only 4 choices because Infantry Branch was not particularly happy to have me back. They said, oh, you thought you were special. You're not getting any cool assignments. And I still owed the Army some time. And I wanted to get out after the 7-year mark so I could at least get full GI Bill. So my choices were Fort Bliss, Texas, Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Riley, Kansas, or Korea. And obviously Korea could just be anywhere in Korea, but chances were good as an infantry officer who had not yet been in a mechanized unit. My destination was probably going to be 2nd Infantry Division. So 2nd Infantry Division, well, what can I say? No one in 2nd ID in Korea is happy unless they are liaisons to Yongsan Army Garrison, which is literally in Seoul. Like you walk outside the gate and you're in the sort of international district / club district of Seoul, or one of them. But very few people get to go to Yongsan if they're in 2nd ID. In fact, most people go to either 2nd ID headquarters, which was at a place called Camp Red Cloud in Uijeongbu, and the sort of one of the northern suburbs of Seoul, or you get to go to Camp Casey, which is in Tongducheon. I went to Casey, of course. I showed up in Korea and basically we spent the night in Yongsan. We were there just long enough to see Yongsan and then we got sent up to our post. And so I got taken to Camp Casey. And what I realized after the fact was, well, it sucked. And I had thought maybe I could escape it. I thought maybe I could get some sweet assignment in Seoul. Because nothing sounded better than hey, you're going to get out of the Army. Go have a sham desk job at Yongsan for 2 years and just do whatever the fuck, live in Seoul. If you're an officer in Seoul on your own, you can live off base, in a really nice apartment and just enjoy your life. But no, I was going to Camp Casey where you're not allowed to live off post. You have to live in barracks. You have to live in this place where nobody actually wants to do it, but all the people in charge want to think that everyone's motivated to just do Army shit all the time. So it's just, not where I want it to be, the absolute opposite of where I want it to be. So anyway, what I found out, and I think that I haven't told you so far in the story, is as I was going from my parents' house to the airport, my dad was dropping me off at the Indianapolis airport to fly to Seattle and then onward to Seoul. My dad told me that because he was in 2nd ID and he was in 2-9 Infantry, Manchus, in the 70s, he had actually called a friend of his who still worked for 2nd ID Association and basically told him hey, if my son's name comes up on the list of inbound officers to Korea, could you make sure he goes to 2-9? Now, the thing about it is that even within the unhappiness zone of 2nd Infantry Division, in the brigade, 1st Brigade, 2nd ID, the unit that everyone, at least online, said you don't want to be in is 2-9 Infantry. They said it sucks really bad. They make them do way more training than every other unit. It's just an unpleasant place. They do this thing twice a year. They do a 25-mile road march. You really don't want to go. So anyway, I found out I was going because my dad basically said he wanted me to be in that unit. And and that's not a common thing. My dad got out as lieutenant colonel, but lots of people get out as lieutenant colonels. The idea of a lieutenant colonel intervening in that way, it's just kind of weird and unthinkable. It's not a normal thing for a military parent to do unless your parent is David fucking Petraeus. So this was just an unusual story. Anyway, I was not able to escape. In fact, not only did I not escape, but I wound up applying for other jobs in Korea, like sweet jobs that I could have gotten out of Casey, and I never got them. So I got stuck at Camp Casey for a little over a year, and then I got out of the Army. Fine. But where the story becomes funny, to me at least, is so we did a really, really long gunnery where we were going out and doing tank training. Our battalion basically had 2 companies of armored fighting vehicles, of Bradley armored fighting vehicles, and then 2 companies of tanks. And we did a full combined arms gunnery over the summer. So we were in the field at this big shooting range complex in the, basically outside of a city called Chorwon in South Korea. We were there for 6 weeks, and then we went straight into another field training exercise in a different training area afterwards. So we literally packed up from gunnery and got in the Bradleys and drove all the way to another training area and did another, I want to say 5 days doing like a great big battalion air assault, which is weird. Why would you do helicopter insertion when you have armored fighting vehicles? I don't know. We just did. You know what? We just trained a lot. Anyway, so as I was at gunnery one night, I had to grade some Bradley platoons, you know, when they were going through their live fire. And mostly it was just like being a safety officer and watching them, but also sort of like the most important thing, I think, because I was a light infantryman, was just sort of watching the dismounts and see how the platoon leader worked with the dismounts, the soldiers who would ride in the vehicles and then get out and go do things on the objective, like go clear through buildings and so on and so forth. And it was just repetitive because you should just do it every night. And one night I was out there, and my driver was this young private. He's probably about 19 or 20 years old. He was a kid from Arkansas. He had been like a bull rider, and he was like super motivated, like super into being a soldier, wanted to go special forces. And like he was a nice kid. But he and I both had an understanding, like we realized that being in this unit was no fun. Like I didn't like it because I knew other units were better and just like you had more freedom. He didn't like it because it was his first unit, but like he was constantly on lockdown. Like soldiers aren't allowed to basically do anything in Korea without massive levels of over supervision, and then people are wondering why soldiers get in trouble because they, you know, miss curfew or whatever, because there's so many ways you can get in trouble. So anyway, he and I are out in this Humvee getting ready in the staging area to like go follow another Bradley platoon out into the actual range. And he asked me like, so how come you came to this unit when, you know, you'd been in other units? And I told him the story. I told him about my dad and everything. And you got to realize that, you know, at this point, like being in Manchu, it was understood. Like people would crack jokes about it. They'd be like, "Oh, you got Manchu'd," like, you know, you got fucked over. Like something bad happened to you, like you got Manchu'd. And that was the same in my other units. Like people would say stuff like, "Oh, you've been Geronimo'd," like basically you got fucked over, like something bad happened to you. But anyway, I told this kid the story about my dad calling second ID, and he looks at me with like this crestfallen look. And he's like, "God damn, sir, you got Manchu'd by your own dad. That's fucked up." And I was just like, Yes, it is indeed. And yet here I am. So anyway, that's my cool guy story that I got to tell. Now, listen to the episode and enjoy other cool storytelling and there are no shit there I was stories, as well as a slight aside discussing some bad military housing issues that are going on right now at an undisclosed base in America. Anyway, hope you enjoy.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is Francis here, and I am here with Jason. If you remember, Jason was on the show back in December, talking to us about Army. Whoa. Explain it better than me, Jason, because I'm going to use all the wrong words, and you're the actual scientist.
All right. Well, hello everyone. I'm Jason L, as you said, also known as False Motive on Twitter. I also like real quick to thank everybody who did participate. We have reached saturation with that, so no more participants. I want to get to everybody eventually, and thank you personally for your interest. It's going to take a minute.
Yeah, so Jason, we had Jason on to talk about the way that soldiers use the language of deployment and everything, but we're bringing Jason back not in a scientific reasoning this time around. We're bringing him back because there's been a lot of talk recently about substandard living conditions on Army bases. And Jason lives on a military base on base housing, correct?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So, and Jason, we're not going to reveal where Jason is, but it is a large base with a infantry division on it. It is a home of whoever, hollowed halls and
Heroes.
pretty tanks outside and helicopters on display and shit. One of those places, not some rinky ass base. So you guys live like in an actual city on a base in a real area.
Oh yeah.
And as I kind of I've been reading this and I was like I know I pinged your wife about it, and then she said no, talk to my husband. And it seems that you I shot you a DM and you kind of broke forth with a lot of stuff. So kind of tell us about where you're living and kind of the conditions of the housing that you're in.
All right. So these houses we're in are about 15 to 20 years old, depending on. And a lot of them was done really shoddily. Like the doors don't close all the way properly when the seasons change. The wiring in all the houses is so shoddy that lights will just flicker on and off like it's an episode of Supernatural. Like we've tried changing out all the light bulbs. We've done everything we can do is without like seriously rewiring the entire house. That's just one of the issues.
And you said this house is only like 15 or 20 years old.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I live in a house that's like 130 years old, and I don't have any of that. I mean, I have doors that don't close very well, but also my house is 130 years old.
Right.
So it seems like all of the the building for all of this was all done via private contractor, as the military likes to do. They like to bring in private contractors to build stuff, because as good as the CBs are, CBs tend to build things quickly and well, but very austere. So it's understandable that they would want to bring in, actual, contracted home builders and everything. But, what, I guess like, what else are you guys kind of dealing with there? Because, the reports that I'm reading are everything from like, rodent problems and black mold. And like, if you have these problems, me as a homeowner, I, call a guy or I fix it myself, but you guys are under a lease, correct?
Right, we're under a lease. Like, I've gotten checks. I decided to take initiative and solve some of the problems myself. Like, we had pieces of our stairwell just fall apart, so I repaired them. And then when they came to look at it later, like, you can't do that.
Now, why can't you do that? Like, what was their reasoning? I guess, I mean,
because it's under lease, and it's because they don't trust us to handle it ourselves. Like, I guarantee you, I did it better than you did.
So how long was that piece broken then? How long was that the stairs piece broken that you ended up having? Between it's broken versus they come and take a look at it. How long does that take?
Right. It wasn't done very well in the first place when they built it. So my twins, who are young, don't care about such things, and they rough on them a little bit. So it just popped out, tore it out. So I re-nailed it back in, sanded it, used wood glue, tried to put replace it as it was, and they still didn't break. And that was after waiting a month from initial calling every week, like, hey, when are you guys coming out? They gave me a date. Eventually, like, oh, we'll come out now.
And so they come out and they see that you did your dad thing. I mean, because a couple of nails and some wood glue, it fixes literally everything when you have kids. If not,
I mean, I'm not like a major carpenter, but I can do some handyman stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, do you get, like, I don't know, in trouble, but do they like ping you? Do they penalize you or something? Like, what?
They were going to penalize me. But I just brought, like, you guys haven't done anything, and I had like raw nails sticking out in my floorboard that I had to get rid of because I have children. Right. They decided just to leave it alone. Now, the one issue that we're facing now is we had a water leak. We had a pipe break because of the cheap PVC pipe they've had installed. Because in the wintertime, they turn off the outside faucets. But to do that there's a switch inside the house they have to get to. They have to drill in through a vent, get to, but they use cheap PVC pipes, so that shattered and was leaking into our drywall. Like, you could see it. There's a visible dent coming in our drywall.
Wow. So there's physical damage happening to the walls of your house at this point.
Yes, and right now, and in August, we had a major hailstorm. That'll probably give me away for anybody that knows about it, but it is what it is. We've had boarded up windows since August.
Wow. Okay, and this is February, so we're talking 6 months at this point.
And and the incident happened in late July.
Yeah, that is, and I guess, like, I mean, what can you do at this point? Like, I guess since you guys are technically
I've called them.
All you can do is call the base housing and hope that they can send somebody out to do anything about it.
Yeah, well, I've called them several times, had them come out to the house and, like, look, I need something to keep my children warm. Because they came in there and it's you go into their room. I mean, we've put in tarps and everything else to essentially seal off the room so they actually don't freeze.
Right.
The whole house upstairs is just essentially several degrees cooler than the rest of the house, no matter what you do.
And what's the excuse? I mean, what are they?
It was such a large scale that they don't have room for it. They were going to they weren't going to do anything. I was like, can you give me anything, like lower the bills we have to pay for the heating costs, or give me something? I took them into the room, and the women who came in were visibly like shivering because it was so much colder than the rest of the house. Then they decided to finally give me space heaters,
Which
and they resent people to apply an extra layer of the some kind of weird black sealant tarp.
but not actually fix anything, not put new literal
Oh
windows.
no, I have plywood on the outside of my house, on every window that's facing towards the
and
west.
I imagine other houses are the same.
All over the entire post. You can drive around. It looks like a hurricane came through here.
Wow, that's just absolutely phenomenal. That and you still have to pay for heating and cooling. Like they give you space heaters. Like here's some space heaters. Like cool. I still have to pay for these things to run. You know, I plug them in. I got to pay for.
Yeah.
Or did they actually lower some bills for you?
Right now, they're still working on. We're pretty energy efficient in our house just because we don't like paying bills in the first place, and we're pretty hardy. We like wearing sweaters and stuff inside the house during winter, so we're used to it. But I've seen some of the other neighbors who are not used to it, and their bills are running pretty high.
Wow. So, and I mean, I can understand that it's it's a large undertaking, but like also it's not hard to go and count the windows and say, okay, order this many windows and start putting them up. Like it really just seems like I don't like they're just not going to do anything for any of it. And like I imagine, when for me, if I came to your base, brand new Sergeant Horton looking for some base housing, and then I go on, it's like, well, I don't want to live here. The windows are all boarded up. Like everything's fucked up. Why would I want to live here?
I think their excuse they've given is they can't order enough, but like all their area, the city around us, can you edit that out?
Yeah.
Anyway, the city around us, they've took some of the same damage and they're all fixed.
Right. Like it, and I hate to like, I mean, we're a very lefty leaning podcast, and you're lefty yourself, and it's it's easy to say, well, out here in the in the private sector area, oh look, they all got their stuff fixed up because of how great capitalism is. But I mean, you're still essentially like renting a place. It's like you're renting a place just on post. Like,
we're renting from a private company.
It's a private company that literally just doesn't give a fuck like any other private company. Because personally, me, if I came to your base, I would say, well, fuck this. I'm just going to go stay off base because they fixed all their windows. But like,
yeah. It's funny. There's government like housing, the low income government housing. Also took damage. They're already repaired.
Wow. So,
and even the socialist ones.
Now I don't know if you saw, and it's always been a joke in the military. You're ex-military yourself, and it's always been a joke about how everybody stayed in some place where they smelled black mold. And it's when it comes to like the 18-year-old dipshits who join the military and are staying in barracks to go out and do field work. Like I imagine it's not that big of a deal, but these are like where you guys live. Like you said, you have kids. You have you have like twins, and then you have a third kid, right?
Yeah, so one of my kids has bad asthma.
Yeah, so you definitely don't want black mold. I mean, nobody wants black mold, but
no. They'll put him in the hospital.
Yeah, and that's and so it's like we've always joked about substandard living conditions for the military, and it is because of stuff like this. And I've stayed in new barracks before for the military, and they're very nice, but you can always tell like when they build, like it's like a place gets built, and then they're like, okay, that's it, it's fixed forever, and then they walk away. And then the idea is that like, well, the soldiers will upkeep it, but like soldiers don't. So soldiers are very basic in what they can and should be doing, really. Like,
right. I mean, and some of the problems require like expertise, a certain amount of expertise to do appropriately, so you don't cause more damage.
Right. I called a contractor in to take care of my bathroom and the floor in there. There was like, and I was looking at it, I was like, I could probably do maybe about 30% of this job, but I need an expert to do the rest of it. 30% I can learn on YouTube.
Right, and even then, and if you screw up, you have to spend more money now.
If my contractor screws up, he's insured and licensed and bonded and everything. So there's avenues of approach there. If I screw up, it's 100% on my shoulders.
And then you have to pay a contractor to fix your mistake.
Yeah, nobody
Which is
nobody wants to bring in a contractor and be like, yeah, I fucked up, so can you please fix my fuck up for me?
right. I mean, like, I'm happy to do like patch a wall or something real simple. But if I see something like, yep, I don't know enough about this.
Yeah, and
That's the problem is they want us to go be that contractor like expertise, but also not.
yeah, I remember when
This is weird dichotomy.
the last time that I stayed on a military post for any extended period of time was I went to Fort Meade for my staff sergeant school, and this was back in 2014. And we stayed in the old Marine barracks that were there, which were austere but fine. Like, there was a bed to sleep in, and the showers were hot, and the cockroaches, stayed in the walls and very rarely came out, which is like, the best I could ever ask for military barracks. But I remember the laundry and bath area, or the laundry and dryer areas. Only one of the dryers out of the 4 was working correctly, and we had to like take some of them apart, like ourselves. Like, we wouldn't trust privates to do it, but we were all like a little, we're all like sergeants and staff sergeants in our late 20s, early 30s, so we're like able to like somebody, we've got enough initiative to be like, all right, pull that dryer out, see what's going on, and then we found out the exhaust vent had a bird nest in it, and so that's why air wasn't flowing out of it. So we had to like brush this thing out there, and it's just like people stay in these barracks all the time, and I'm sure like they always say put in a work order, which very rarely has that ever worked. Like sometimes you'll see like some contractor who looks like he's stoned out of his mind walking through and like staring at a broken light and be like, oh, that's broken, I got to order a part for it. But for the most parts,
no shit.
It seems like soldiers got to take some initiative.
Yeah, then but the problem when you're leasing is the same thing. Is you're kind of stuck. If you do it, they charge you a ridiculous amount of money because you decided to take initiative and fix the problem.
So why not just stay off of post then? If staying off post is, they fix their windows a little bit better, what is it that compels you to stay on post?
Honestly, with our family size, there wasn't going to be a better way. Our BH, it's just the best money. The size of the house that we need just to be comfortable is going to be on base.
Yeah, that makes
living is so high, and then we're not eligible for daycare. We have to be on post, get daycare on post.
Wow. So
and daycare off post is so expensive. Like for me to finish my schooling, on post daycare is necessary. We used to live off post.
Then
Daycare is still expensive, but now we have 2 children under the age of 5.
now
Daycare post is in several $1,000s. On post, it's under $1,000.
Now, when you're on post versus off post, can the kids go to schools on post versus off post? Like, do you have to be living on post?
Yeah, you have to go on. There are a few exemptions, usually for higher ranking officers and stuff. But for the most part, if you want to go to on post schools, you have to be living on post.
That's wild. So they kind of get you trapped with a kid then. Like if you were single, like single soldier who's an E5 and wants to stay off post, that's not too hard to find. But as soon as you need anything else, you're kind of entrapped there.
Yeah, because you can't use most of the services unless you live on post. They won't allow you. They only reserve those services for people families who live on post housing. There are exceptions, but you have to get a memorandum signed by the garrison commander. But to do it, you have to go through a lot of hoops that most junior, like lower enlisted families will not even know about or have enough influence to even try to do that.
So how about have you seen the Air Force Chief of Staff, Secretary of the Air Force Heather Wilson, and Chief of Staff David Goldfein? God bless the Air Force for being the first ones to try something. But from Task and Purpose, aiming to grant military families far greater say in the challenge to hazardous housing, the U.S. Air Force told Reuters Monday it will push Congress to enact a tenants' bill of rights, allowing families the power to withhold rent or break leases to escape unsafe conditions.
Yeah, I saw that, and let's just say that local housing office here is in a damage control mode, so I imagine a PAO like yourself would understand.
But not actually fixing damage, just in its own.
Oh yeah, just They are having town halls on post. I'm going to one tomorrow to get more information.
So it took suddenly somebody said we're going to give people the right to remove money from you, and then all of a sudden, okay, I guess we'll fix everything.
It's liberty, but also socialism at the same time, so it's bad.
Well, I mean, you guys are saying on post, the military is the most socialist organization we have in America.
I think that reminds me of a joke, actually, I heard someone time. The Army, just the military in general, is a social organization defending the largest capitalist nation that is run by the libertarians who never have to live their actual values.
Now, so I guess, would you hold out hope for something like that? Like that there might be a Bill of Rights? Like, if something like that did happen, I'm sure it would happen first for Air Force bases. And I doubt, the Army always feels like kind of everybody just, the leaders just kind of shrug and they say, get over it. If you don't like it, you can leave.
That's essentially what the message has been for us for a while. It's like, sucks to be you.
You ain't got to be here. So why don't you just get the fuck out, I guess.
Yeah.
And I guess they know they have you,
like
right? I mean, they know
that.
because you have to have the on-post childcare and everything. So they really do kind of get you over in a bind.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if I worked a additional job with my schooling, I would never get to see my kids anyway. Right. If anything, because all that money would go directly to daycare if we lived off post.
So,
like, I'd literally be working for absolutely no gain. My labor would be essentially worthless. I'd be paying just to go work, just to make sure my kids stay in daycare.
So what else have you guys kind of had to deal with being on post? Because it's eye-opening. I always thought that on-post housing was, not necessarily given to you, but that it was at least taken care of by the military. Like, I didn't realize that there was I've never been active, full-on active duty, so I didn't, know that you had to do something like that. So what other are the other things you guys have to deal with staying on post?
I think it honestly depends on the post. Like, we've had one at other places we've lived on post and it wasn't bad. Issues were handled very quickly and efficiently. There was no real problem. If there was something rangy, they call up like, oh, hey, yeah, we'll take care of that. No issue. Like, within the same day, the issue was dealt with. I think it has to do with whatever company. Like, usually it's the garrison command. Apparently, I got a message I can show you later from a certain officer on our base that was in touch with my wife. They essentially told us, don't do the ICE complaints. The commander's staff is preventing negative ICE complaints from reaching him. So a lot of it is the command climate and the various yes men that they're essentially stopping complaints from reaching, so nothing's being done.
So it sounds like each post had, like, there isn't some overarching, like, this is the KBR of on-post housing. Every post has a different contractor based on who's available in that area.
Yeah, like the company that works with us, I can tell you later if you want. They have their office is actually based out of Texas, nowhere near where we are at.
Okay, but
they have essentially a chapter that works here, and they have final say with everything because of their contract. They actually got rid of the village mayors, which was a major part of the on-post housing for our little villages around, and you were elected from the neighborhood itself. They didn't like it because some of the mayors are actually like, you need to fix these problems, so they just got rid of it.
That's the problem when you start putting other people in charge. They might want you to do your fucking job.
Oh yeah, like people, like one of the mayors actually literally like we're going to expose people. We're doing kind of like that Bill of Rights, the Bill of Lenders' Rights thing. It's like, you're not solving these problems. You're just causing so many problems you're ignoring. We're going to do something about it. So they essentially abolished the village mayor on our post, the village mayor system.
Wow. And how long have you guys been on the post that you're on now?
Over a year now.
Yeah, that's that.
April will be 2 years.
So, as you said, other places kind of do it a little bit better. And that they would come out and they'd fix things a little bit faster. What else do you think? Like, do you think a tenant's bill of rights is kind of the way to go with it, or do you think that bringing this under something, doing it a different way, I guess?
Man, I would like to see the village mayor come back with some revisions because a lot of it was also the village mayor program was being abused to avoid having to clean your house afterwards. If you were a village mayor, you didn't have to clean your house out after you moved out when you PCS'd. So people were abused and not doing their job either. So that needs to be a change as well. I think kind of a combination of bringing back more of the public, not the public, but the spouses and the families saying how it runs in their neighborhood with the rights so people know exactly what they can and can't do. And being very transparent about it is the only way to go forward, honestly. Because right now, the regulations that involve that are so arcane and just out of the loop, and a lot of it is filled with exemption to policy letters, various things. It's just kind of a pain to look through. If you're talking like a brand new, E2 and their spouse has no idea how the army works, and a lot of you have the old guard that says just to suck it up. You're not going to do you're not going to understand that,
Right.
We got to force the old guard to have to follow rules at the same time, so new people can come without having to suffer through just to get experience to know that yes, I have rights. You can't bully me to do this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, just basic knowledge is always going to be a big part of it. And I guess a mentor, the mayor system is also kind of a mentor system if you get down to it, because they would, like you said, somebody take somebody under your wing, because when you show up in a new base, right, you get a mentor, or you're brand new to the military. You're supposed to get a sponsor or a mentor, somebody to just like show you around. The same thing should be done. Anytime you start out at some, in at least in the military, because like we're supposed to be all communal and shit in the military. So you would. Well, I don't want to go to if I went to some apartment complex and got an apartment there, I wouldn't expect the apartment complex to be like, anyway, here's Raul. Raul's going to show you around the place. Like, Raul's probably got better shit to do than to hang out with me.
Well, I mean, I agree with that, but I got a story about when I first came in here. We went to the playground. There's a playground nearby. There was just broken beer bottles everywhere. And I was told, hey, if there's a problem neighborhood, go talk to the village mayor. They'll square it away. Well, I found the village mayor. They had a big old plaque on outside their house. Like, knocked on the door, like, can I help you? He's like, yeah. There's like, yeah, I don't deal with that. You can call the MP or something. I don't care. And she just slammed the door in my face. I'm like, oh, okay, great. I guess I was picking on myself then. So I got these infant kids, these 2-year-old kids. I'm like, all right, let's just go back inside, kids. No, we're not going to play with broken Bud Light tonight.
Well, and in a lot of ways, that is like in my own neighborhood. If people don't keep the place clean, then it doesn't stay clean. You can't really expect the government itself to do it. But also at the same time, the whole point of a mayor is to take care of that little enclave area. And maybe that means
right. Maybe that means what was kind of brief to us was like, hey, if you have a problem neighborhood, the village mayor's job is to look into it and find resources to help you. I'm not saying do it by myself, or the mayor needs to go clean this up. Like, hey, maybe we need to talk to the neighbors about not throwing their beer bottles at the playground.
Right. Or a Saturday, once every Saturday in the morning, people go out with some bags and clean it up or something like, something easy like that. But yeah, like you said, man, every position of power will have people that want to abuse it in one way or another.
Well, I agree. I think a tenant bill of rights, though, is probably the best way to go forward because it forces people to follow rules.
Now, my only problem with a bill of rights, though, is one, enforcing it. Because say you have that mayor again, and you have a bill of rights, and you say, well, okay, I'm going to invoke this part of the bill of rights that says that you are not, following through on your duties. Like, what exactly does that do? Like, okay, so they're not the mayor anymore. Like, even if, and for me, I'm a big fan of, I don't trust anybody that wants power. I
feel the same way.
So like the village mayor should be a reluctant position. There should be nothing that comes with it. And it should just be somebody who's like, God damn it, I guess I'll do it. Because
I agree. That's why I say if we do bring the village mayor back, at least for my community, is to have that stipulation. Like, there's no reason to do this beyond like, yeah, this needs to get done. There's no benefit.
Right. Beyond,
you're allowed to hear and you're allowed to voice the opinions to hire.
Right. You need to have somebody who cares about living in like a decent area, who cares about like my windows have been boarded up for 6 months and that's kind of fucked up. Like, you need to have somebody who gives a damn about that. And unfortunately, what like you described, you'd get people who will just abuse that kind of system. Because any little bit of privilege, man, and somebody will take advantage of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I know there's not an easy answer there, but we got to do something more than what we have now, which is essentially.
I mean,
sucks to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially nothing. It's you can't. You're damned if you fix it on your own, and you're damned if you just leave exposed nails for your children to trip over and cut themselves up on. And God knows how knows how good the medical staff is going to be there now that we're cutting a bunch of army doctors and shit from active duty. Like,
oh yeah,
cool.
And I was a medic beforehand, and they were talking about this even when I was still in. Our doc's like, our workload's already pretty high. You can't just cut people like this. They're wanting to cut problems, hoping that the do more with less works great on a short-term basis only.
Yeah, it doesn't work great when you're talking about a guy like literally cutting people open to fix things inside of them.
Yeah, there's I'm not expecting miracles, but at the same time, I don't really want this is just the PA we found. He failed out of medical school. There are a lot of PAs that didn't do well in medical school. There's a reason they're working for the Army and not for John Hopkins.
Right, and no disrespect to PAs out there, because
I've seen some great PAs in my day, and they've taught me as a medic really well. But I've also known some PAs that, let's just say, they wanted to insert a chest tube into the wrong side of the chest wall, and I got in trouble for pushing them away.
Yeah, and you're as we say, the military doesn't exactly attract the best and the brightest, because if it did, we wouldn't have joined.
No, I mean, when someone asked me if I wanted to go to Ranger school, man, I am too lazy to go to Ranger school. Thank you. I've seen what they're doing at pre-Ranger school. I'm just like, nah.
Man, basic training was enough for me. That was already I only get to sleep 5 to 6 hours a night, and you're making me run all the time. And I wasn't even in infantry basic. I was public affairs. I can kind of say, it was slightly tougher because I went to Fort Benning, but I mean, it's still just the same 9 weeks, and it sucks, and you're sleep deprived, and then at the end of it, you go home, or you go to AIT, and things are a little bit easier. But yeah, every time I see Rangers, it's like, all right, man, that's on you. That ain't me though.
My favorite one is the people who went Ranger tab, but they're grossly overweight and out of shape now, and talk about the old days. Favorites, or one of my favorites in my third tour, we had officers who were from West Point. They just freshly graduated, were coming to our deployment, and this was just whenever they announced they're letting women into Ranger school. They said they were going to burn their Ranger tabs as soon as they got them. I just laughed my ass off. Because these guys, this is my third tour, and these guys said they hadn't even been shot at and angry yet.
Yeah, man.
You don't even have a Ranger tab. Oh my God, how?
Yeah, my favorite. I always love going backwards in time of soldiers to all of them talk about how terrible basic training was for them back in the day. Because I remember talking to I love talking to soldiers who go through basic training in the last couple of years. Because I went through before 9/11, so mine was still, Cold War mentality training.
So instead of fighting a bead, you got to fight Ivan instead at basic training.
Exactly. But we also we didn't do we didn't have cool built cities and connexes, cities built out of connexes that we did urban ops in, because there was never any. You were never doing urban ops. You were doing it was always large. It was always mass scale, because we were always well, when we finally go to war with Russia and with the USSR, I guess is what they were still training us for, even though it was 2000s. Nope, it'll be big mass formations of people and large tanks and huge, force on force violence. And it's y'all, we just went through Vietnam. We're just basically going through Vietnam stuff, but in the desert again. It's maybe y'all should have trained us on that instead. No, that's fine. Whatever.
It's okay. I was trained to go to Iraq twice, never went, so I had to go back and train for Afghanistan. Deployed.
Yeah.
We would go back to the same training area, but instead of Arabic interpreters, we'd have Pashto interpreters, and same stupid trophy missions, but now it was for Afghanistan versus Iraq. I'm just so frustrated.
We had a cultural attaché my first my second deployment, like for 2 days, we had this guy who would teach us about basically the Muslim, the Arab Muslim. And it wasn't until later that cause it didn't dawn on me because I just wasn't, I don't know, as understanding of these things at the time. But he was from Morocco. He's a Muslim from Morocco teaching us about Muslims in Iraq. And, I was like, man, the biggest Muslim population is Asian. Like, what the fuck is, I was like, I don't even understand. What do you have this guy to tell us about? Like, go over the history of, he was fine. He taught us stuff. He gave us some basic understanding. We watched an interesting documentary called The Cult of the Suicide Bomber, and like how suicide bombers in Arab culture came to be during the Iran-Iraq war. But like later on, it was kind of which is a very good documentary if you get a chance to watch it. I'm sure that I say that now as somebody who's probably a little bit smarter is like, maybe it's not so great. Maybe it's a bit racist as well. But I don't know, that kind of that here's something that we think, well, I don't know, here's a Muslim, talk to him. Maybe he'll teach you about Iraq and how to be okay, how to survive Iraq in the Muslim world. It's like, I don't know, maybe he's Moroccan though. He's never been to Iraq. I don't know why you brought this guy in for us. It's not like they didn't have Iraqi dudes they could find too. Like there's plenty of American Iraqis they could have brought over to tell us about Iraq.
Yeah, it was like that with Afghanistan. My first tour, we were in the Waigal Valley, which is a little bit northeast of the Korangal Valley, which is the famous. What's the joke? Only Afghan deployments that count are in Konar and Nuristan.
Yeah. And that's what Restrepo was about.
Yes, Restrepo. But the thing is that the whole area it's so fractionalized and xenophobic tribes there that unless you were from that tribe, you don't understand the language anyway. You're from natural born and people who are born in the country. Like, I don't know what the hell he's saying. I found this story of various tribes in Afghanistan. Well, this one time we're at a village. And this dude comes up to us wearing a traditional Afghan. It's like, hey, what's up, man? And just very California accent. I can't do it, obviously. But it's just weird seeing an Afghan yell at you in a California accent.
Yeah, man, there was some.
He's like a lawyer in LA, and he comes and sees his dad in this village every Eid.
Oh, that's wild.
The real moment I've ever had. I was like, this dude, he was using talking very much slang English to us, like he was just another dude on the block. He looked like an Afghan warlord, like a young Afghan warlord. He got the hair, he got the turban, he's got the whole show. He's got the whole thing. He's like, I just come here to see my dad. What's up, man? What's up, my brothers?
Well, I mean, I guess it's nice to occasionally find a friendly face in Afghanistan, even if it happens to be another American.
Yes, it's just a very surreal moment. I was like,
yeah.
He just buys a ticket. He just buys a ticket to Afghanistan every Eid.
Wow. Well,
he's a big lawyer in LA.
Well, man, I think we kind of reached an ending point there. We're only at 40 minutes though. Anything else you want to talk about?
Man, I've got all kinds of crazy ass stories to tell.
Let's do another fucking 10, 15 minutes, man. We'll do this as a full episode.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll go to my second deployment with the 101st.
Boo. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. All right, both me and my wife were on this one together. Well, all right, so part of the issue was my aid station at the time, we had a whole bunch of Plan B. But they kept it locked up, and the PAs didn't want to give it out to anybody. They just wanted to use condoms or just be abstinent only. They were pushing abstinence only education to troops downrange on a base.
Okay.
So what happened was someone came in the middle of the night, broke into our pharmacy, which is locked, has morphine and fentanyl and other hard drugs, left that alone, stole all of the Plan B, and then created a black market selling it throughout the FOB. It's like it was fucking marijuana.
Shit.
Plan B. It's right here.
Did you find out how much they were selling it for?
I don't remember. It was I think $20 or something because we didn't always our finance only come around. So even the market itself was forced to go low, but still, it was still a black market created out of Plan B.
Well, you know what? If y'all ain't gonna give it out to everybody, they're gonna have to. That's what ends up happening. I mean, there's a reason why we were making our own booze in Iraq. It's because we couldn't have it. So what the fuck do we do? The things you're never gonna stop soldiers from drinking. You're never gonna stop them from fucking. And I don't understand why anybody would just give the soldiers 2 beers a day. Like, it seemed to work for the Brits.
I mean, there are a number of times we'd have mass casualties, and most of the medics weren't there, so I'd have to go out and go find them in their hooches and find them fucking some other soldier and be like, you need to get the fuck out of. You need to get the fuck out of. They have each other and get fucking casualties coming in. Like, kick the door in. I don't care what bears. Like, we got casualties. Let's go.
Wow, you're like Radar in MASH. You just start yelling choppers to everybody and then start pulling dudes out of women.
Yeah,
or pulling women off of dudes. Either way.
Yeah, it was just like one time, one dude, like, I got fucking super ass pissed because I found a bunch of condoms in my fucking FLA.
What's your FLA?
It's a front ambulance. It's a 4-liter ambulance, but it was like one of the Mac. It was one of the new ones, the Mac, kind of the Macvies.
Oh, so you found used
Special
condoms?
armor. Yeah, used condoms on my fucking
That's
truck.
Disgusting. That. You know what? Here's the thing. If you're gonna fuck in the truck, fine.
Yeah, I'm like, I
put down a sheet.
I knew it was because it's the only dude who had the Magnum condoms.
But
like, dude,
yeah,
I don't give a fuck. If you fuck, clean this shit up. I got fucking patience to have to go on this damn.
No, man, nobody I don't want to be picked up with a fucking part of my leg blown off, and the last thing I see before I pass out and wake up in Germany is some used condom sitting like a limp snail on the fucking floor of my ambulance. Like, oh Jesus Christ, what army did I fucking join here? But also that would be completely understandable because soldiers are disgusting.
Oh, they most certainly are. I mean, so we did have a funny one. If there's ever a person I hated more was this one guy. He was a medical supplies sergeant. He'll never listen to this podcast, but if he does, I hope he does. And I hope he tries to hunt me down because I hate him so much. He's just the most worthless supply person ever. He just so shitty at his job. Like, we built him a supply tent on the fob for him that he barely showed up to help build for all our medical supplies. And then he got rocketed, and he constantly said, man, I could have died. Like, dude, you weren't even anywhere near the thing. It happened at night while you were asleep next to us. And all he talked was like, I could have died. That was my office.
Fuck, man, we all could have died at any point in time.
Exactly. I was just like, come on, man. But it's funny about this guy. He failed out of infantry school.
Wait, so just regular infantry basic training he failed out of?
Yeah, he failed out of it. He had to get reclassed to medical supply. He says, well, I went to infantry school. I was like, yeah, and you failed.
I don't want to give anybody shit for failing out of something in the military, but regular ass infantry school, that's just, when I was going through, that's just 4 more weeks of getting yelled at. It's
yeah, if you fell out of SIS, you fell out of Special Forces Q course, cool, man, that's hard as shit. There's a lot of people. No shame in that. You fell out of essentially basic plus.
I mean, what you're saying is you wouldn't have made it as a Marine because that's how long Marine boot is 13 weeks.
Exactly. So, and he was just he was just a general piece of shit. His own NCO stole his TV and replaced it with his own TV, and he took me aside Ella, come here. He went into some CSI bullshit about his fucking TV, and I didn't like him anyway, so I just half the time didn't fucking care. But I was just so his own sergeant didn't like him enough, hate him so much he stole his fucking TV.
I tell you, one of our most fucked up things. One of our broadcast journalists went out on a mission outside of post, and she was a wee little thing. And she was a broadcast, so she had to carry the big camera, and she fucking shows up and she goes out on this mission, and it's about halfway through that one of the NCOs that's out there on the mission is just like, "Hey there, specialist, where's your weapon at?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't bring it." And they're like, "I'm sorry, you went outside the wire and you didn't bring your weapon." She's just like, "I mean, I gotta carry all this stuff." They're like, "So the one thing you left behind in a war zone was your fucking rifle. Are you fucking high right now? She was never allowed to go back outside of the base to go do any stories. And like I understood, and the thing is though is that we have a major on in our, you have a major as our commander, and our major was always just like, hey, anybody, if you ever, he carried a pistol, he was the only one that carried a pistol, and he's like, hey, if you guys ever go out on day missions, let me know. You can borrow, you take my pistol with me. He's like, I got in this nice little shoulder holster. You got to have a weapon with you. He's like, just don't fucking lose it. And a lot of us did that. We were just like, hey, sir, I'm going out on this mission for the day. Here's my rifle. And he'd be like, yep, I got you. Go ahead. And then he'd be like the one major walking around, going to the chow hall with an M4 slung over his shoulder. Like looking like a badass. Cause when do you see an 04 carrying a rifle other than like a combat 04? Which like, I gave shit about like carrying a pistol on my first deployment, but I mean, when you're public affairs, a pistol is great. It's just the one, you just put it in the holster and then you don't have to deal with it. And then like if shooting happens, you let the shooters deal with it. Well, you get your camera out and get some cool shots of them doing their shooty stuff.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I did in my third jury. If I wasn't actively outside, unless I wasn't advising or something, I just carried my pistol around.
Yeah, and that's what, like, when we deployed, we all were, we went to Iraq, I was telling everybody that we better hope that we get pistols, because otherwise we're gonna, and we got, I mean, to be fair, we got, like, brand new M4s, and we got the CCOs, so it was kind of cool to, like, get your hands on a weapon system that, like, as a reservist, I would never see. But, then then you have people leaving their rifles behind because they just don't want to carry all this shit. It's like, well, you're not, and the other great thing too was I pulled her weapon and pulled back the bolt on it, and like the sound of 6 months of desert inside of her bolt, a bolt that had never been like pulled back since we qualified at Camp Buren 6 months before, and it's just like, this is so horrible. What are you doing to me? This is not going to do anything for you.
I'm trying to figure out how you would clean that properly. Like I can just imagine CEO from my infantry day when I was attached to infantry companies, just like beating the shit out of me if that happened. Like my rifle is always clean. I'm just trying to figure out how would you clean that properly.
I mean, we had to break the whole thing down completely, field strip it and oil everything, because that's what it was. It was just never had been lubricated. So when we pulled it back, dust really didn't get into it because we're in yellow on Bagram. So we had a magazine in the well at all times. So her dust cover was closed and the bolt was forward. So you don't really get dirt into it, but also if you're not, pulling it apart every once in a while and lubricating it and making sure the function check still works, the rifle deteriorates on its own, just from lack of use. Incredibly, you can't. the M4 and the M6. Yeah, the M4s and the M16s are like such bad weapon systems that just leaving them alone for an extended period of time can damage them. One day we'll finally move over to the AKMs. One day. I mean, well, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on. It was really great talking. Not only talking how fucked up your living situation is, but telling some more stories, which I'm always a fan of.
Well, I've got plenty more if you want to do another episode or like a side episode one day. I'm more happy to come back on.
Yeah, we might bring you on just to tell us fucked up medic stories, because the medics always have the best stories.
I've also got some good Fister ones too.
What's a Fister?
That's a Ford Observer 13 Fox artillery Ford Observer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll definitely bring you. We're
the other people that get attached to infantry companies besides medics.
Oh, okay.
So we're still folks, but we hang out with infantry all the time.
Well, now you guys can get those cool combat action badges, so at least...
we do. I have the combat action badge and the CMB.
Wow.
So I looked ridiculous as an E4. They always ask, you clearly were demoted at one point. Which is true.
Hey, if there's no real good NCO that wasn't demoted at some point in time. Except me. I was never demoted, but I did spend 7 years as an E4 because... I was kind of a piece of shit, but so it goes.
We all have that phase.
I mean, I was a reservist, who nobody cared, and then I was getting ready to deploy to Iraq, and they're like, you should get your sergeant stripes, and I was like, why? And they said, look how much more money you're going to make. I said, okay.
Sure, I love this. Let's go.
Fuck, $500
It's
more a
time to
month?
be
Hell yeah.
NCF. It's time to lead.
All right, man.
All right, Francis, thank you for having me on. Nate, thank you for...
And everybody, thank you so much. And you can follow Jason at False Motivation. You should definitely follow him because he has good takes, and he is another one of the lefty-leaning veterans out there who's out there doing great things and still very much in the military community. So, Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you, Francis. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
All right, everybody. Thank you. As always, you can follow me at Army Strang. You can follow Nate at In These Deserts. Follow our guest at False Motivation, and just let you guys know we're finally going to be moving forward on the zine. So if you check out the Patreon, there should be a $10 Patreon now. At the moment, we're just kind of doing it quarterly to see what's going on. But anybody signing up for that $10 Patreon in the month of March is going to get a little extra thank you. If not, probably in April, we're designing some stickers and whatnot to start sending out. So, keep an eye out for that. We're moving forward with it, moving forward with some tangibles for you guys to start sending out. Hopefully, start doing some buttons. I'm still fucking around with some Photoshop stuff. Nate, of course, is still doing design stuff too. So, a lot of stuff coming out. If you haven't seen it, we have the Kalashnikov Classic t-shirt. I'm currently working on a Swoletariat design as well, so you can show off your leftist gains in the gym, and everything else. As always, thank you so much for doing what you do, whether you are a member of the podcast or a member of the Patreon or not. Just always thank you for supporting us, and hopefully we're going to keep growing and doing more and more as the months and the years come. Thanks.
Zoom, zoom.